I can read. I'm not dumb. Hello. Good morning. Hi. Oh, let me do that. Hi. Hello. How y'all doing? Good morning. It's me, your boy, the boy that reads. Hi, Shala. Hi, everybody. I'm here again to read Man, Fuck This House by Brian Asman. And, I'm sleepy as heck. Because my sleep's been bad. What happened last time, anyway? Not a whole lot, actually, I believe. Hold on, let me turn off this music. And, hide this player, this player thingy. There you go. Last time, what happened? The family moved in. We got a dad, we got a mom, we got a child who's creepy. But, like, pretend creepy. Because his mom doesn't like him. And we got a daughter. And I don't remember their names. We're just gonna have to remember them. There you go. Dad's called Hal. That's one thing I see on my page that I've opened. They've moved in on Sunday. We will be reading about Wednesday. And so far, the only spooky thing that's happened is there a mysterious giant fat man hanging out in the house they moved in. And he just kind of shows up sometimes and disappears. And the mom's losing her mind, and the dad doesn't believe her, and the children, they're like, she's cray-cray. And the little boy is pranking their mom, and she's just losing it. It's all a big mess in this family. It's a big old mess. The family is terrible and dysfunctional. Honestly, they need some good family time to get us to sort out their problems, because they're not gonna hold in a house like this, you know. Oh yeah, Sabrina is the mom. Okay. Oh yeah, the child is called Damien, like the devil child Damien. And then I don't remember what the daughter is called anymore. But we shall see. Yes, we shall see what's going on in this funky house with the giant fat man. And Damien, who keeps getting weird messages from something in his phone. Why does the child have a phone? He shouldn't have a phone in the first place. Dad goes to work at the job place. Kids go to school. Mom stays back and experiences the spooky stuff. Classic. Okie dokie, let me just pop up my usual music and we shall read. Generate me some tunes, Windows 95. Douche. Wednesday. It is Wednesday, my dudes. Sabrina barely slept. She dozed off shortly in the small hours, only to snap awake again once the earliest rays of dawn filtered through the blinds. Hal still snored next to her, turned away on top of the sheet. She turned off the alarm on her phone before it rang and went downstairs. At the landing, sweat broke out on her brow. She crept through the lower level of her own house, peeking around corners, fearful something might pop out to consume her like the sandwich. She intended to brew coffee, the first step in the complex morning ritual required to keep the Haskins family operational. But when she stepped into the kitchen, she froze. The coffee pot was full. Fresh, too. The air thick with the scent of warm Java. She looked over her shoulder, then advanced into the kitchen, step by excruciating step, focused on the wooden knife block on the counter. Maybe she couldn't cut a ghost, but she'd surely try if the opportunity presented itself. She reached the counter, pulled a knife from the block, realized she'd grabbed a bread knife, unlikely to intimidate anyone, corporeal or ethereal, pulled another, a nasty-looking butcher knife. Back to the counter, Sabrina raised the knife in what she hoped was a menacing manner and hissed, "Where are you?" Nothing. No specters emerged to challenge her. No ghosts nor goblins poked their heads out of the cracks and crevices in the walls. Just a woman, bangs plastered to her forehead, threatening the air with a knife over a fresh pot of coffee. Absurd. Laughter bubbled up from her guts. Tears poured from her eyes. She doubled over, dropping the knife, the clatter resounding off the walls. Hun? Hal stood in the doorway, bathrobed, hair mussed, a handful of strands sticking up in the cowlick. Sabrina stopped laughing, wiped tears from her eyes, tried to compose her features into something resembling a serious expression. I dropped the knife, she said lamely, pointing at the butcher knife on the tile. You dropped a knife. Sabrina nodded quickly. Silly, it just slipped out of my hand. Almost took a toe off. She lifted her foot, wiggled her toes. Hal made a point of looking at his watch. Doctor should be open soon. He frowned and walked away, mumbling to himself. Great. Not the first time, Sabrina asked herself if she was going insane. A pointless question. How would one know? If you had the good sense to ask if you were going crazy, you couldn't be. Right? She stooped, knees groaning, picked up the knife, slid it back into its home. It had already done enough damage. The rest of the morning passed agonizingly slowly. Sabrina thought she'd be glad to have Hal home, but that wasn't the case. He took over the dining room, turning it into a makeshift office, and while she didn't begrudge him the space, no matter where she went she could feel him down there, nominally working, mostly judging. It was weird. They rarely quarreled because there was so little to quarrel about. Hal picked up after himself, mostly, brought home a decent paycheck, bought her flowers. They still had sex, just the other night even. Now Sabrina couldn't imagine touching him. She kept thinking about that moment in the kitchen, the sandwich disappearing out of her strange little son's hand. Where could it have gone? And why was Hal fixated on her reaction instead of the impossibility he'd witnessed? Sabrina grabbed a basket of laundry and headed down to the basement, hoping the large man would make an appearance again, and she'd scream, and Hal would come running, and he'd see. He'd see. And then she wouldn't be so alone. Other than a brief moment when she thought they were out of detergent, just enough for a single load, nothing remotely frightening happened in the basement. After, she puttered around the house, avoiding the dining room. Hal called her in, once, telling her he'd scheduled an appointment with Dr. Sanderson for 3 weeks hence. He said that last part with an uncommon bitterness, and went back to his work. By lunchtime, Sabrina had had her fill. She had to go somewhere, get away from the house, the husband, all of it. But her car still hadn't arrived, and she wasn't about to ask Hal to borrow the Camry. He'd probably think she'd drive it off a cliff in her current state. That's when she remembered the plate. The neighbor's plate, which needed returning. A minor errand, to be sure, but it'd get her out of the house, at least. Sabrina went to the sink. The plate gleamed in the dish rack. The spooks hadn't only made coffee, apparently. She wasn't sure whether to be grateful or afraid or angry. A strange admixture of all three boiled in her veins. Maybe that was worst of all. She never quite knew how to feel. Sabrina picked up the dish, about to stick her head into the dining room to tell Hal she was leaving, but stopped. Why should she check in with him? Sabrina left, shutting the door quietly, and headed across the street to Zephyr's. The front door opened the minute she stepped foot on the sidewalk. The older lady coming out onto the porch wrapped in a ratty yet inviting cardigan. The same yellow hue as her house predominated. A mug in one hand, a bemused expression on her face. I was wondering where my favorite plate was. Sorry, we just finished the sandwiches. Sabrina stopped short of the porch. This is your favorite plate? Zephyr took the plate from her. I tell that to all my dinnerware. Shh. Oh. Sabrina stood there awkwardly. The sandwiches were delicious, by the way. Very kind of you. Just being neighborly. Would you like to come in for a Chugachino? She hefted the mug. Sabrina had no idea what that was, but relished the thought of being inside someone else's presumably non-haunted house. Sure. Well, come on then, Zephyr turned, disappearing into the house. Sabrina mounted the steps, let herself in the front door. The heavy scent of incense nearly bowled her over. Zephyr's living room matched her personality. Bohemian would easily cover it. Tapestries on the walls, tribal-looking masks and knickknacks, decorations woven out of rope. A spinning wheel occupied one corner, reminding her of Rumpelstiltskin, while an upright piano sat beneath a colorful mural of trumpet-blowing jazz musicians. "Make yourself at home," Zephyr called from the kitchen. Sabrina moved some throw pillows out of the way and settled onto the big, overstuffed couch. She shifted around, trying to get comfortable, less out of actual discomfort than because she didn't have a phone to occupy her. Zephyr came out of the kitchen carrying 2 mugs. She handed one to Sabrina. "Ever had a chugachino?" Sabrina peered into the mug. Looked like coffee, which made her heart beat a little faster. "What is it?" "Mushroom coffee." Zephyr plopped down next to Sabrina. "Not the fun kind, I'm afraid." "Oh." Sabrina blew on her drink until the steam dissipated. Took a sip. "A little earthy, but in the same zip code as actual Java. It's good." "And good for you. Know what goes really well with it?" "No." Zephyr opened a small wooden box on the coffee table, revealing a stash of hand-rolled joints. She took one from the box and stuck it between her lips. "Want one?" Sabrina hadn't touched weed since college, and only then a handful of times. It either didn't work for her or left her incapacitated, burrowing into the closest couch she could find. Still, it had been that kind of week. "Sure." "Atta girl," Zephyr said, lighting the joint. Weed smoke mingled with the incense hanging in the air. An improvement, in Sabrina's opinion. Zephyr puffed on the joint, then passed it to Sabrina. The harsh smoke made her cough. She had a brief flashback to the one time she'd smoked with Hal, who just said coughing makes you higher over and over again, laughing to himself about something that wasn't even a joke. But it was good. She felt lighter, more relaxed. Maybe it was the drugs, maybe being out of the house, or just talking to another adult who wasn't her husband. And didn't think she was crazy. Either way. "May I?" Zephyr said, motioning for the joint. Sabrina blushed. "Sorry." "You don't do this often, do you?" "How'd you know?" Zephyr waved dismissively. "How are you settling in?" The question was enough of a blank envelope. The urge to confide in her new neighbor struck Sabrina. She let all the aggravations and uncertainties of the last few days out. But she didn't. "Fine," Sabrina said. "It's a beautiful house." Why didn't you want to come in the other day?" The question fell out of Sabrina's mouth before she even realized she'd said it. Bold, for her. Zephyr took another long puff on the joint. Exhaled, staring off into the distance. Sabrina searched for something else to say. The last thing she wanted was to alienate the only non-Haskins she knew in the entire greater Jackson Hill area. "Sorry," she mumbled, moving to stand. Zephyr put a hand on her thigh. "Sit." Sabrina sat. "Do you believe in the supernatural?" Zephyr asked. Days before, Sabrina would have scoffed. She believed in God, vaguely, but that didn't count. Ghosts, witches, demons, other than her kid? Pish-posh. Now? "Yes," Sabrina said quietly. "You've seen something, haven't you?" Sabrina nodded. "I thought so." Zephyr stubbed out the joint in an ashtray. "When I came over the other day, I didn't expect it, if that makes sense. Didn't expect anything, but when I crossed the threshold, well, I'm very sensitive." Ooh. "Ever had the shower turn cold on you?" Yes, that's what it's like. You're warm, hardly even thinking about how warm you are. And then, it's more than a chill, it's something else. But a shock, alright. That's what I felt. I should have been honest with you, but it surprised me so I retreated, ran off like a scared little dog. You've felt this before? Things like my house? Oh, yes. Like I said, I'm very sensitive. Ever since I was a little girl, I saw things, heard things that other people couldn't. The world isn't what they tell you it is, I'm afraid. Zephyr smiled tightly, then looked away. Most of the, I'll just say, things, words like ghosts are too loaded, full of false connotations. They're harmless. Don't even know you're there, but. She lowered her voice, as if she feared someone might be listening. Other things? They see us. And your house made me feel. Seen. I'm not proud of leaving you in the lurch, but there's something in your house, Sabrina. And I think you know this. Yes. Zephyr drew a leg up underneath her. Tell me everything. Sabrina did. Every last detail, and many extraneous ones thanks to the weed. Zephyr listened patiently, nodding, sometimes asking a clarifying question. When Sabrina finished, she realized she'd been gripping her coffee cup so hard the handle left an imprint in her palm. Incredible, Zephyr said. I've never heard of such sustained activity. You've lived here a long time, haven't you? Since 1983? So, what happened? Was someone. Sabrina hated to say it. Murdered in my house? Heavens no. And the neighborhood, it wasn't built on a cemetery? This old world's a cemetery, Zephyr said. But no, nothing like that. It's a painfully ordinary neighborhood. Mostly bank owned. Been years since anyone lived in your place. The man, I forget his name, was quite loud and messy, hardly kept the place up at all, but nothing violent ever happened there. Oh. They finished their coffee, Zephyr chattering away about nothing at all. The town, her favorite restaurants, a yoga class Sabrina simply had to take. Eventually, Zephyr checked her watch and stood. Sorry, but I got more chores I simply must get to. Come by again soon? I will. Sabrina held up her coffee mug. You want me to. Just leave it on the table, will ya? Sabrina headed for the door. Just as she opened it, Zephyr said, Wait. Sabrina turned, one hand on the knob. Something struck me about your story. The things you've seen, a strange man carried the box down the basement steps, a bath appeared out of nowhere, morning coffee. Yes? None of it's malevolent. Quite the opposite, actually. Have you ever thought that maybe you're just lucky? That's one way to think about it, Sabrina said slowly. Thanks again. She left, trudging back to her own house. The one haunting her, or helping her. Thinking if this was luck, it was merely surely a strange sort. Let's take a short break. Hey gal, how you doing? Good. People always get flashbacks that they never get dark fronts. No, you don't want the dark fronts after all, because that's what the flashers give you. Oh ho 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 ho. I hope you're doing well, gal. Hello, hello. Let me take a swig of water and continue reading. I do hope this evil spirit just turns out to be like just some helpful little sprite that kind of hangs out in the house and just does some chores and stuff. It's scary, it's creepy, but it's harmless. It's actually useful if you get used to it. That would be fun, yeah. Even though it's terrifying, having some apparition just living with you. Let's see. I got like a burp building up in my throat or something, and it's annoying. Class was painful, even more so than usual. Mr. Tudhill concluded their unit on Zack Snyder's 300 and moved on to recounting that what Damien suspected was the plot of Gladiator, one of Harold's favorites, in embarrassingly animated fashion. Damien strongly believed pantomime had no place in the classroom, even if it was employed to reenact a sword fight that didn't occur 2,000 years before his birth. The entire performance was insufferable, and he stared at the clock, counting the seconds and hoping for a good old-fashioned school shooting until the bell finally, mercifully rang. Now to work. His trip to Forever 31 complete, Damien had one more pressing piece of business to accomplish. Blood was an intrinsic part of his plan, but the fake stuff wouldn't cut it. Verisimilitude was the watchword, and one sniff of the Caro syrup-stuffed plastic pellets on the racks at the Halloween store told him they'd never do. He needed real blood, needed that iron tang to stoke Sabrina's atavistic impulses, sent her spiraling headlong into a world of madness and terror. Thankfully, you can find anything on the internet. Damien skipped the school bus and boarded the city bus instead with a pocket full of cash divested from his sister's piggy bank. After all, she owed him for bailing on the plan. He leaned back in his seat, watching the city slide by. His phone buzzed. More mystery messages he could safely ignore. But then he noticed his data connection was far better than anywhere near the house on James Circle, and logged into Fortnite to pwn some noobs until the bus reached its destination. Gah. Michaela watched her brother pass his bus. Head down, never making eye contact with the driver. She was secreted in some bushes in front of the elementary school, leaning on her bike. Luckily, getting out of class was easy. She faked a stomachache. Her medium-handsome teacher, Mr. Delano, asked if she had lady problems. And, of course, she swallowed her mortification and said yes, given that she was assuredly a lady with some very real problems. Like finding out what her little brother was up to. She'd long been a willing participant in Damien's schemes, although of late she'd found herself less a partner and more a fall guy. The infamous Columbus County Fair incident, just one amongst several where she'd been caught holding her brother's bag. Suddenly, stricken of TV and video games and, God, Mom, TikTok privileges, Damien's antics didn't seem so funny anymore. Definitely not now, with her mother seemingly teetering between sanity and its opposite. A block away, Damien loitered around the city bus stop. She ducked into another stand of bushes to watch. Her brother was maddeningly observant, but he seemed wrapped up in whatever he was doing. A bus arrived. Damien got on. Michaela was faced with a difficult decision. Board the bus and blow her cover, or lose him to the city. Neither option seemed acceptable. Through the bus window, she could see Damien bent down, focused on his phone. Probably Fortnite. She pushed her bike out of the bushes and hopped on. The bus pulled away from the curb, Michaela pedaling furiously to keep up. A passing mom in an SUV gave her a weird look. Kids her age didn't ride their bikes around Jackson Hill solving mysteries, apparently, like every other Netflix show, but Michaela ignored her, pedaling furiously after the bus. Luckily, the bus got caught at the next light. She caught up, careful to keep away from Damien's side, and leaned on her handlebars, panting heavily. It went like that for the next 2 miles, the bus pulling away over some distant hill, only to get snarled in traffic again. Once she feared she lost it altogether, came through an intersection thick with strip mall clusters, only to see it stopped a few dozen feet away. Damien got off the bus, still engrossed in his phone. Seemingly without looking, he walked into the parking lot of a strip club called House of Jugs. Gross. She coasted down the sidewalk, veered behind the Cadillac, set her bike down on the asphalt, and poked her head around the taillights, trying to see what her brother was up to. Damien was on his phone, talking animatedly. After a moment, a large man in overalls and a trucker hat came out of the strip club, swaying from side to side. He belched so loudly she could hear and almost smell him all the way across the parking lot. Her brother handed the man a fistful of cash, who counted it twice, nodding to himself, then ambled over to a rusty pickup with truck nuts hanging off the license plate. Two objects, canisters, that's something, sat in the back. Michaela inched around the Cadillac, slipped under an SUV. Commando crawled closer to see what was going on. But the best, the man was saying. Drained it myself. Do I need to worry about diseases? Parasites? Depends on what you plan on doing. Damien giggled. It's for a school project. Yeah, okay. The man lowered the gate. Damien climbed up into the truck and popped the lid off one of the canisters. He recoiled, nearly fell out of the tailgate. Michaela clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from yelling, "Be careful." Damien steadied himself, then paused. His nose twitched. His gaze fanned the parking lot. Michaela shrunk up under the SUV, pressing herself against the tire, hoping he wouldn't see her. Although she wasn't really sure why. If he knew she followed him, maybe he just abandoned his idiotic plan. As if. The man said something unintelligible to Damien. He scanned the parking lot once more, then jumped down out of the truck bed. Looks good. You can't deliver? The man held out his hand. Damien grumbled and peeled off a few more bills. Highway robbery. My cousin Terry works at the U-Haul. Guarantee my delivery fee is less than what he'd charge to pretend like he saw a driver's license, plus the booster seat rental. Very funny. Jokes are free. Delivery ain't. We good? Michaela was still focused on the canisters in the back of the truck. What in the world was Damien up to? And where did he get all that money? Damien tapped the side of the truck, slid a pair of child-sized Ray-Bans over his eyes. Pleasure doing business with you. After coming back from Zephyr's, Sabrina drew a bath, on her own this time, and sank into the deliciously warm water. Fearless. With Hal home, she only worried about being judged. The water relaxed her, and the time alone, free from the state of hypervigilance she'd neurosed in 4 days, helped her get a little perspective. She kept thinking about Zephyr's words. Nothing malevolent has happened. Had it? Sabrina replayed every moment in the house from the day they'd arrived. Several disconcerting experiences, yes, but if she suppressed her fear of the unknown, looked at everything objectively, the actions of the house, and she felt a little crazy thinking that, as if Hal could peer into her mind and use it as ammunition later, when the men in the white coats finally came to drag her out to a '58 Cadillac Sentinel, the actions of the house, like Zephyr said, were hardly hostile. The ghosts, again, crazy, silly, had done what exactly? Made coffee? Drawn baths? Carried heavy boxes full of half-remembered belongings down to the basement? And then eaten their neighbors' disgusting sandwiches as a reward? They hadn't threatened her, outwardly. Any threat was all in her head. Except the dream she'd had, maybe. The man from the basement barging into her bedroom. But wasn't that in her head too? Hal saw nothing, heard nothing, except Sabrina freaking out. Maybe her mind had stitched her memories of the experience together with her latent anxieties, whatever fears and trepidations were ping-ponging around her subconscious. What would Freud say? She'd taken Psych 110 before dropping out. She should know this stuff, although it always seemed a little snake oily to her. Those psychiatrists or psychologists, she could never remember who did what, they were all quacks anyway, weren't they? And in 3 weeks, Hal wanted her to go see one. The house didn't. The house, when she really thought about it, didn't want anything from her. Not like her daughter, rides, money, a minimum 10-foot distance at the mall, or her husband, dinners, lunches, and worst of all, impeccable mothering. And her son, what he actually wanted she couldn't articulate. Something bad. Her soul? But the house, what did it want? Nothing, seemingly. The house gave. Maybe, she thought, dipping along the waterline, wetting her hair even though she didn't feel like shampooing it. Maybe. Down there, below the bubbles, there seemed to be an awful lot of maybes. Far more than she'd ever had in the last 15 years with Hal. Not since she was in college and her life was one big maybe. Huh. When she finally got out of the tub, there was a fluffy, clean towel folded up on the toilet seat, just waiting for her. Damien didn't wake up because he never really slept. He'd stayed up late, and once the Haskins house was asleep, silently let himself out of his room, finding the farmer had been a stroke of genius, albeit a very smelly one. The man had proven indispensable, providing Damien with everything he needed. The delivery was scheduled for 1 a.m. Damien pattered down the hall in his socks, not making a sound. He paused at Michaela's door. No light came from under the crack, and an ear to the wood yielded nothing but the familiar, rhythming wheezes of sister sleep. Good. Certain no one would interfere, Damien crept downstairs. He looked out the window. A dented truck idled in front of the empty house next door. Lights off. Damien listened once more for noises from upstairs. Blessed silence, and reached for the doorknob. Bzzzt! His phone! Damien cursed silently to himself, pulling the infernal device from his pocket. He expected a simple text from the farmer, "I'm here, dude," or some such banality, but no. The message was from that infuriating unknown number who'd bedeviled him ever since his arrival in Jackson Hill. Don't. Damien frowned. Who was this mystery texter? Why were they so concerned with his business? And most importantly, were they watching him? Damien looked around as if some hitherto unmet neighbor might be hiding in the shadows of the foyer. But no, he was alone. So who could... Michaela. The answer was obvious. She'd spoofed a fake number in order to what exactly? Unsettle and harass him? Derail his plans? Damien smiled through his annoyance. He'd taught her well. He powered off his phone, extended a middle finger at the ceiling, and then slipped outside to meet the farmer. Amazingly, the man was as good as his word. Damien fretted all through dinner the farmer might simply run away with his money, but no. His country-fried honor bound him to the handshake deal he'd made the 10-year-olds. They unloaded the canisters of pig's blood and secreted them in the shed. The farmer surprisingly discreet, moving silently and keeping his redneck voice down. Passing Michaela's door, he stopped again to listen for signs of life, but heard nothing. In his room, he changed back into his SpongeBob's and slipped under the covers. His phone chirped. Damien startled. It was off. He knew it was off. Still, he reached for it. Yet another message waited for him. You shouldn't do this. It's not nice. Damien stifled the urge to toss the phone across the room. Instead, he banged out a quick message. Meddle not in the affairs of Damien's, for you are stupid and your butt smells. Tapped send and leaned back into his pillows, satisfied he'd totally owned her. Bzzzt. I'm serious. No, Michaela, I'm serious. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. That seemed to shut her up. He turned the phone off again, just in case, and was about to fall asleep when it buzzed again. I'm not Michaela. And wasn't that exactly what Michaela would say? He shut the phone off, properly this time, he hoped, and shoved it in his closet hamper. The issue resolved, he tried to go to sleep, but couldn't. Michaela Haskins slept soundly and sent not a single text, from her own phone or any other. End the chapter. Big stretch. I like the wife just considering dumping her family and living with the house. That's so helpful. It's really good. And yes, thank you for the reminder. I will hydrate every time I take a break. Don't worry about it, gal. It almost looks like the house is gonna kill everybody except the wife, and then they'll live together for happily ever after or something. It's like trying to stop the kid from pranking his stressed out mom, helping with the dishes and like leaving warm towels, running the bath, making some coffee. and everything is going well for her. She just gotta embrace it, Okay. Actually, when isn't my ad break coming up? I need to check, make sure that I got 15 minutes for an ad break. I should be able to make another. Yes, yeah, I could. I should manage. Some reading before I have to take a break. Anyway, let us continue. Thursday. Sabrina awoke 15 minutes before the alarm. Refreshed. She stifled a yawn, looked over at Hal, blissfully asleep beside her, his hand tucked between cheek and pillow, and thought, wouldn't it be nice if Hal's lunch just made itself? Wrapping her bathrobe around her, it smelled like detergent. Even though she hadn't washed it since the move, she pedaled downstairs. The kids' backpacks, book-stuffed, waited next to the front door. Fresh coffee and a brown bag sat on the counter. Not lunch she ordered. She opened the cabinet, checked the trash. Empty. A brand new liner in the can. A girl could get used to this. With little else to do, Sabrina poured coffee and settled on the couch. Flipped on the TV thinking she'd kill time with Good Morning America. Nothing but static. Sabrina groaned, turned the TV off. Where was the cable guy, anyway? It's been days. Wait. Sabrina squeezed her eyes shut. Thought about watching TV. Pictured Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. All of them. Laughing and bantering their way through breaking news and the pet tricks and interviews with Tom Hanks. Pictured herself, smiling along with her best friends. Sad. That was sad, wasn't it? No matter. She imagined an Insta-fitness guru she liked. This woman who wasn't annoyingly perfect, didn't airbrush her stretch marks at least. The guru was demonstrating a Bosu ball routine, saying something about hip flexors. Michael Strahan said he wished he could be that flexible. Everybody laughed. Sabrina flipped on the TV. Good morning, America, George Stephanopoulos said, flashing the camera a smile. Great to see you this morning, Robin Roberts added, giving Sabrina a thumbs up. Sabrina returned it. We got a very special guest today, Jor continued, all the way from Jackson Hill. Michael Strahan popped up from behind the counter, grinning his gap-toothed smile. That's my favorite town! Robin patted him on the head. Okay, Michael. Here she is, our very special guest, Sabrina Haskins. Sabrina gasped. A woman walked out on stage, long silky hair shielding her face, wearing yoga pants and a navy tank top. She waved at the audience, studio or otherwise, and plopped down on a couch next to the anchors, flipping back her hair. It was her. Or a better version. This Sabrina didn't have chunky thighs, or a pooch, premature wrinkles, the subtle streaks of gray Hal insisted he couldn't see. She looked poised, confident, and she had Michelle Obama arms. So, Sabrina, George asked, and now he looked an awful look like Hal. Actually, we're delighted you could take some time out of your busy schedule to hang with us. So delighted, Robin squealed. You're really setting the world on fire, Strahan said, popping out from behind the desk again. With your, He squinted at an offstage teleprompter. New blog! Was that it? Should she start a blog? Oh, it's more than just a blog, Michael. screamed Sabrina said with a practiced studio chuckle. It's a virtual lifestyle destination. A comprehensive solution to help you, she pointed a finger directly at the camera, become the best you can be. After all, I did. George nodded. If anyone's an expert, it's you. Tell me, Robin said, how do you get Michelle Obama arms? Or maybe we should be calling them Sabrina Haskins arms, right? Sabrina winked. That's why I'm here. Now, this might seem a little feng shui. She wrapped scare quotes around her words. But the first thing you've got to do is find the space that's conducive to self-actualization. Learn to trust it. Let it become a part of you. A good house anticipates your needs, after all. Knows you better than you know yourself. Sabrina, the real Sabrina, nodded along. The conversation was at once very hard to follow and made perfect sense. She'd learned so much from GMA over the years. She really should keep listening now that she was on the show, no? Sabrina made a mistake. A big mistake. Even once footsteps spattered across the ceiling, indicating the others were up, she couldn't pry herself away from the TV. If anyone else came downstairs, what would they see? Her agog at an empty screen, probably. GMA disappeared the second Hal poked his head into the living room and said, Hon, have you seen my khakis? Sabrina dropped the remote. The screen was predictably filled with snow. Static blared through the speakers. She'd had the show up quite loud, apparently. Sabrina grabbed the remote again, shut the screen off. What are you doing? Hal said. Oh, she flayed for an answer until the box of movies by the TV saved her. I was going to watch a movie? I don't suppose you have time to hook up the DVD before you go? Can't you? I mean, it's like 2 chords. He caught himself. Yeah, okay. Hal got on his hands and knees and started hooking up wires, grumbling. Thanks, hon, Sabrina said. I'll get your lunch and coffee. In no way did Sabrina believe her deception had been remotely successful. And when he finally left, he muttered something about trying to move her psychiatrist appointment up. But at least she was alone. Alone in the house. Odd how things change so quickly. With nothing to do but wait for the delivery of her car, Sabrina went back into the living room, thinking she actually would watch a movie. Why not? She sat the box of DVDs on the couch, flipped through the Haskins family film collection. Bizarrely eclectic. Sabrina preferred romantic comedies, 27 Dresses, What Happens in Vegas, whereas Hal liked fart jokes and explosions. Michaela favored foreign films, although Sabrina suspected that was just her grasping at adulthood. Family movie nights usually turned into debates about what sort of movies were appropriate for a 12-year-old. For his part, Hal didn't do so much stake aside as unsubtly suggest they watch a Sandler flick instead. Then there was Damien. After the 3 more vocal members finally settled on a Mission Impossible, since the series was frequently set in Europe and equally frequently blew up its setting, they'd microwave popcorn and settle onto the couch. But Damien would sit cross-legged, facing his family, watching their reactions instead of the film. Sabrina found it profoundly unsettling. Sabrina tossed a few of her usual choices onto the couch. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days seemed appealing. But when she went to open the case, something stopped her. She glanced at the TV. Back at the movie. Back at the TV. GMA was probably wrapping up. But maybe the house would keep making the TV work for her. Nobody would be home for hours anyway. Sabrina raised the remote. The screen flickered to life immediately. A commercial for cleaning supplies. Several bestial children covered in filth with long ratty hair hanging in their faces were in the process of destroying a kitchen that looked identical to her own. The children smashed glasses, smeared bloody fingerprints all over the cabinets. One hopped on the table until it broke, the legs rolling away. The other child, still unseen, all that dirty hair, picked up a table leg and started beating the other over the head. "Hit me!" the recipient screamed, voice quavering with delight. "Hit me!" The other child reared back, swung as hard as he could, the table leg arcing through the air. The image froze, just before wood connected with jaw, the color leaching out of the scene in an instant. Keeping your kitchen clean isn't easy. A voice that sounded suspiciously like Sabrina's intoned over the still image. Especially with a couple gremlins like these. The scene started again. Sabrina, hair beehived, blue cardigan over a flower print house dress, entered, smiling like a Stephanopoulos. Good thing there's NanoClean from Sains, the bleach people. With just 2 little squirts. An orange bottle popped into screen Sabrina's hand. She poured bleach into 2 wine glasses on the counter. The feral children picked them up. I can make this whole mess. Screen Sabrina winked at the camera. Disappear. The children squealed, chugging their glasses like frat boys at dollar beer night, hair flipping back to reveal Damien and Michaela's profiles. No! The real Sabrina screamed. She hit the remote. Nothing happened. She rushed the TV, searching for the plug. On screen, the kids flopped to the ground, spasming, their spines bending back into question marks. Recalling questions that always went unspoken in the Haskins household. Why do you have me, for starters? Sabrina froze, hand inches from the TV's power cord, an answer resounding in her mind, while the fast meals of her children writhed and trashed and puked up their guts on screen. Because I couldn't think of anything else to do. She sank to her knees in front of the television and stayed like that for a very long time. Right, let's take that break now. We got that starting in 5 minutes, and I don't think I can make another chapter in that time. So, I'll be right back. Also, hi Eisenheim, you're so suspicious today. You saucer, you ghost. Whoops, I didn't want to snooze those ads, but I'll just take that break now. Wow. Ka-chow. I'm back, y'all. And I'm ready to continue reading. Almost seems like the house is gonna turn this Sabrina into like the killer who's gonna kill all her family, and like she's gonna live on her own or something because she's just happier like that. She's like, what if I don't have to have a stupid husband and devil children? What if I could simply not? Her dream husband is a giant man who just takes care of everything. Alright, let's continue. At some point, Sabrina made her way back to the couch, flipped channels, found the court show, like Judge Judy, except she was the judge, and the plaintiff, the bailiff, the audience. Everybody was shouting incoherently. She changed channels, some kind of cop show, screen Sabrina tracking down a murderer. Click. A soap opera. Hal had a very expensive suit and an eye patch and might have been a doctor. Click. A game show. The set dressed like The Price is Right. A man with thick glasses reading from cue cards at a podium. Sabrina squinted at the screen. Her high school boyfriend Darren. Screen Sabrina played all 3 contestants. Her children with the prizes, locked in a birdcage, hovering over the stage. All the contestants bet nothing, and everybody won. Knock, knock, knock. Sabrina reflexively hit the power button. The image on screen disappeared. Knock, knock. She stood, realizing she still wore her bathrobe. Decided she didn't care. Probably Zephyr, checking up on her. She looked out the peephole. A swarthy man with a Chevy baseball cap stood on their stoop, inspecting his clipboard. She frowned, opened the door a crack. Hello? Miss Haskins? He jabbed the thumb over his shoulder. Your van. A flatbed sat in front of their house, her minivan on it. Finally. Sabrina listened to the man's spiel. The form required much initialing. Then the flatbed groaned, dropping her minivan in the driveway. The man asked her if she had any questions. She did, but none he could answer. The flatbed drove off. She realized she still stood on the doorway, keys in hand. Checked her watch. Nearly 1 in the afternoon. She was hungry. Now that she had a car, she could go out for lunch. See what Jackson Hill had to offer. They were supposed to have nice restaurants. Maybe she could become a regular somewhere hip. A place where they put goat cheese on the salads. Huh, Sabrina muttered. She dumped her keys in the dish next to the spare for the Camry and went back into the living room. The TV tray sat next to the couch, bearing a Caesar salad and a glass of red wine. Sabrina sat down on the couch, sipped wine, plum and tobacco notes, and inspected the salad. She changed channels. Wait. I think I went the wrong way. Fresh shaved parmesan, not goat cheese. She shrugged and turned on the TV. Damien got off the bus, excitement building. He'd had a rather good day at school. Hot dogs for lunch. Plus, Mr. Tudhill seemed to be teaching the sword and the stone as actual history. The man's abject failure to even attempt to do his job was becoming endearing. But now he was home, and far more exciting things awaited him. Entering the cul-de-sac, Damien lowered his head to study the ground under his scuffed sneakers. Watched the world strictly through his peripherals. When he reached their front porch, Damien slipped off his shoes. Socked feet made less noise, and he preferred to move and thus appear silently. A small part of him wished he could lumber about the house like his idiot father, and maybe someday he would. He'd never admit it to Michaela, but his lifelong prank had to have some sort of endgame. Why spend childhood pretending to be possessed if there wasn't a reveal at the end of it all? Maybe this next one would be his last. He'd give Sabrina one good scare, and then come clean with the news he was just a normal, albeit super intelligent 10-year-old. You must be joking. Damien entered the foyer and paused, listening. The house was silent. Strange, because the family minivan, perhaps the most embarrassing conveyance known to man, a species that invented both the pogo stick and the unicycle, was finally here. Sabrina should be about, and yet he didn't hear any shuffling house slippers, changing of pots and pans, or stifled sobs. Damien sniffed the air, searching for that rank, motherly stink that had plagued him all his life. Boiled radishes, although Michaela swore it was just in his head. Now, though, the whole house reeked of bleach. Sabrina had been on a cleaning jag, evidently, despite the fact they'd only just moved in, and the other Haskinses had yet to fully convert the place into their own personal pig pen. Damien nodded approvingly. Perhaps she was turning over a new leaf. A snore erupted from the living room. Loud, rank, hoggish. Damien peeked his head in. There she was, sprawled on the couch in her bathrobe. An empty wineglass sat on the coffee table. No coaster. He rolled his eyes. Of course he'd become a cliché, or even more of one. College dropout to stay-at-home mother was a well-trod path. A blood test would probably reveal the presence of all sorts of pharmaceuticals. He gave the room a cursory glance. Noting the static pouring from the television, the DVD cases thrown on the floor at the foot of the couch, the remote still clutched in her hand. Shook his head at the sad, sad scene. A flicker of something, empathy maybe, flared in the back of his mind, but he dismissed it. If anything, the tableau in front of him made him even more sure of the course he'd chosen. Sabrina was asking for it. He stood over her for 10 minutes, slack-jawed, hoping she'd wake up and scream at the sight, but no. Annoyed, he stalked upwards, reminding himself of the afternoon's silver lining. She had a car, finally. The second he had the house to himself, he could enact his plan. Yet another message from Michaela's alt. Leave her alone. He sent her back a picture of Johnson's baby shampoo, no more tears, and went about his business. Sabrina Haskins woke up feeling like her phone had been ringing for a very long time. She blinked, looked down at her phone, just as it stopped buzzing. 11 missed calls. All from the same unfamiliar number. No messages. Sabrina was about to call the number back when her phone rang again. Same number. Hello? Miss Haskins? The voice was male, deep, flat, businesslike. She was pretty sure they were paid up on all their bills. This is she, Sabrina replied, rising off the couch. Her legs swayed, unsteady from an afternoon's disuse. She planted a hand on the couch's arm. Ah, hello. A muffled cough echoed from the other end. We haven't met. Bill Ramstead. House boss? Oh, hi. Sabrina poked her head into the kitchen to check the microwave clock. 4:30. What can I do for you? Sorry to call you like this, Ramstead said. But your husband is in the hospital. Hal? As if she had another. Started getting us stomach pains after lunch. We thought it was just indigestion, but about an hour later, Raina found him passed out on the floor in his office. Paramedics said they'd have someone call you from the hospital. They didn't, huh? No? That's bureaucracy for you. Well, glad I called then. Hal's tough. I'm sure he'll pull through, but, you might want to get over there. See what's going on. Jackson Hill Presbyterian. You know it? We're new. Of course you are. I can send Raina to get you. Sabrina looked out the window. My car finally came. How about that? You change your mind, give me a call, okay? Ramstead clicked off. Sabrina stood there, phone to her ear, wondering if the conversation had actually happened or if it was like the TV, realish, an illusion bordering on delusion. Maybe it was the house pretending to be Hal's boss, although why would it do such a thing? One way to find out. She found the hospital, a sprawling, ultra-modern glass complex with numerous outbuildings. The Crane Cardiology Institute, Hutchinson Center for Obstetrics and Gynecology. Sliding into a visitor space, she kept thinking about the Camry back at Hal's office. Likely would sit there until Hal recuperated, because who'd help Sabrina bring it home? Raina, whoever that was? Zephyr probably rode a bicycle, maybe a broomstick, and Michaela was years away from even asking for her learner's permit. Locking the car, it occurred to Sabrina she decided this was very serious, even though for all she knew Hal might just need an IV and some Zofran. Food poisoning, right? Strange. She was always so careful, washed her hands and wiped the counter after handling raw chicken, eggs. Except she hadn't made Hal's lunch, had she? Excuse me, ma'am, an orderly muttered, nearly knocking her over with a cart loaded down with hospital supplies. Sabrina had wandered right into reception without even realizing it. She approached the front desk, gave her name. They directed her to a very uncomfortable plastic chair where she waited for an interminable amount of time before someone told her to go to the third floor. Sabrina wandered until she found the nurse's station, got further directions, and finally ended up in Hal's room. Of course he was asleep. She didn't want to wake him, so she sat down in another uncomfortable chair until a nurse came in to check Hal's vitals. The woman grunted at Sabrina's questions, scribbled on a clipboard, and said someone would be along soon. Sabrina watched Hal sleep. Peaceful. Very peaceful. Aside from the flushed skin and sweat beading his brow, and wondered if he was dreaming. Footsteps clicked down the hall. A woman entered. Pantsuit, hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked nothing like a doctor, everything like a cop. Mrs. Haskins? Everyone was calling her that now. Sabrina was so used to Mom and Hun and other familiar diminutives. Even Brina, Hal's idiot shorthand, because 3 syllables was too many for him. Mrs. Haskins felt strange, foreign, even though she'd been exactly that for a third of her life. Sabrina said, standing. The woman motioned for her to remain seated. Sabrina noticed she didn't carry a purse. Detective Sherman, the woman said, extending a hand. Short, well-manicured nails, a simple gloss. Sabrina took her hand without thinking. I'm waiting for the doctor. Just spoke with her. Dr. Garipari. She seems very good. Sabrina nodded. That's, what you want, I guess. Sherman gestured at the doorway. Mind if we talk in the other room? It'll take just a moment. Sure. Sherman moved away from the door, waited for Sabrina to get up, then drew alongside her. She guided Sabrina to a small break room where they sat at a round table covered in crumbs. The detective pulled a small spiral-bound notebook from her pocket. Mind if I take a few notes? No? Great. She drew one leg over the other. What have they told you so far? Nothing. I haven't talked to anyone. Sabrina scratched the dirt trapped under the nail. A nail. You're a police detective? Correct. What's a police detective doing here? Just detectives, okay? Sherman's nostrils twitched. Have you been drinking, Mrs. Haskins? No? Sherman scribbled something on her notepad. You're new here, right? As of last Saturday. Welcome. Sherman looked up from her notes, gave a passably genuine smile. Getting settled? Sabrina shrugged. Moving's a real nightmare, Sherman said. I'm from Boulder originally, but it's a great community. Really is. Have you been to R.J. Fluffernutters? No. What passes for culture here? Video games, skee ball, stuff like that? Your kids will love it. You have kids, right? Michaela? And Damien? Sherman scribbled. That's great. I love kids. Always thought I'd have a couple of my own by now. I'm sure with the job it's tough meeting someone. You can say that again. Cops date cops, and if you've seen the department... Sherman arced an eyebrow. Gosh, can you believe what I'm stuck with? Anyway, I think you met one of my colleagues a few days ago. Actually, Officer Stevens? Sabrina could barely picture the man, but she nodded anyway. Got an update for you, Sherman said. We'll get to that in a second. How are things with you and Hal? Good? No fights? Moving can be a real strain. Sabrina shook her head, confused as to where this was going. That's good. Look, the reason I'm here, Sabrina... I can call you Sabrina, yes? Yes? Reason why I'm here, the doctors ran some preliminary tests and it looks like Hal might have ingested something. Pretty routine, covering all the bases. He's going to be okay, by the way. He is? Sherman fixed her with a strange look. People usually ask that. Ask what? If they'll be okay, their loved ones. Have you and Hal have had any arguments lately? No! But they had, hadn't they? Sabrina's chest tightened. What if they knew about the psychiatrist? The outburst at dinner. But what did this have to do with anything? Sherman muttered, writing. She asked some more oddly specific questions. Whether Sabrina made Hal's lunch or not. And how could she answer that without lying or sounding like a complete loon? Clearly, she said yes. After asking the same 5 questions seemingly a dozen times, Sherman set her pad aside and fixed Sabrina with a serious look. I need to ask this specifically, and you need to be honest with me. Sabrina, can you do that? Be honest? Sabrina nodded. Has Hal ever hit you? Sabrina sucked in a quick breath, like she'd been punched. Of course not. The detective's eyes never strained from Sabrina's. He's in the other room. He can't hear you. Anything you want to tell me. Hal's never hit me. The thought had never even crossed Sabrina's mind. A couple of her other boyfriends, the guys who came wrapped in leather jackets, pulling cocaine-crusted dollar bills out of their chain wallets to buy her an extraordinarily late dinner at Waffle House, those boyfriends, they hadn't hit her either. But with one or two, sometimes she'd said something, and all of a sudden the air stilled. Highly pressurized, like right before a storm when you can smell the rain on the wind. And that single moment stretched out so long she thought if she'd blinked, she'd find herself on her back in a hospital bed. Not like with Hal. Sure, they fought, said things they shouldn't, just like anyone did. But he'd never raised a fist to her in anger. Nor she to him. And Sabrina knew neither of them ever could. The detective didn't. "I'd tell you," Sabrina said. "I promise." Sherman reached in her suit jacket, handed Sabrina a card. "My personal cell's on there." Sabrina slid the card into her purse. "You said you had some news about the..." She struggled to find the right words. "A prowler?" "Right. 1 second." The detective pulled out her phone, scanned what Sabrina presumed to be an email. "Question for you. First, the box Officer Stevens dusted for fingerprints? That was left by the previous owners?" "No, it was ours. Why?" Sherman tapped a nail on her phone screen. "Ordinarily, this stuff takes forever." She rolled her eyes, the slowly turning wheels of justice, am I right? "But we actually had the first fingerprints in the system. Longtime friend of ours." "He is? Have you ever met Dirk Perryman?" "No, I don't think so." "See, that's why I asked if the box came with the house. Mr. Perryman is a former resident." Sabrina blinked. "He is? Did he..." She swallowed, her mouth awfully dry. "Die in the house?" "Huh?" Detective Sherman gave her a weird look. "Perryman's not dead. In fact, he's in prison." "What?" "Vehicular manslaughter. Really nasty. But before my time. Prior to that, he was well acquainted with Jackson Hill PD. Ran a bit of a party house. Booze, drugs. A real nuisance." The gears in Sabrina's mind turned. "You're sure he's in prison?" "Checked myself. Not going anywhere either. He's got a bit of an attitude problem." "Oh." Nothing about it made sense. How had a convict gotten his fingerprints on their box? Even if he used to live there. Do you have a picture of him?" Sherman shrugged, pushed her phone into Sabrina's hands. "Knocked yourself out." Sabrina stared down at the phone screen. A black and white mugshot stared back at her. A large man, biggish eyes, vaguely drunk expression. The same man Sabrina had seen in her basement, without question. The room swirled around her. "I don't feel so good." "Well," Sherman said, standing, "this is the place for it." Is the man just astral projecting or something? Into the house. What is going on? Why is the guy there? Weird. Or maybe it's the ghost in the prison and the real guy's... Or maybe he's got a twin. Oh. Alright. Let us continue this reading, shall we? Jackpot. Damien was alone, finally. No Sabrina, no Michaela, no Hal. Not that his father would have noticed anything amiss anyway. Now he could begin. Damien stepped out into the backyard. The shed door was half open. Dumb move. He must have left it like that the evening before, when the farmer delivered the supplies. Thankfully, Michaela hadn't nosed around. Unless she left the door open. Damien ran to the shed, stuck his head inside. Something landed in his hair. He yelped, brushed it out. Couldn't see what. A dark shape skittered under the lawnmower. He thought about yanking the ripcord, praying the disgusting little creepy crawly, but he didn't have time. Donning a pair of work gloves, shaking them out first, naturally, Damien grabbed the first canister of blood, hauled it bow-legged into the house. He set the vessel in the mudroom, then went back and got the other. Hauling them upstairs proved more of a chore, but with the proper motivation and plenty of haughty words, Damien moved everything into its proper place. Rigging the device above Sabrina's bedroom doorway was easy by comparison. He'd designed the contraption with his usual brilliance. Had no doubt it would work. With the tripwire set, he stole one of Michaela's old baby dolls, the most realistic one he could find, and slathered it in blood. Just a little something he should wave around. Then he went downstairs to enact Phase 3. A little symbology would go a long way. He took a knife from the kitchen, shoved the coffee table out of the way, and started carving a pentagram in the floor. His phone kept going off. More texts, certainly, but he paid it no mind. Michaela could try to stop him, but there was nothing she could... "What are you doing?" his sister shrieked, standing in the doorway. Damien ignored her, kept etching. So intent on his task, he never noticed 100 pounds of angry sister weight bearing down on him. Sabrina drove home from the hospital, head spinning. The last few hours had really done a number on her. Hal woke up, confused, but seemingly out of the woods. The doctors were running some additional tests and planned to continue monitoring him for at least another day. They had questions, too, asking after Hal's allergies, diet, where she bought groceries. The detective, Sherman, had hovered at times, obsequious, asking Sabrina if she wanted coffee, at other times silent, staring, judging. Sabrina didn't care for her at all, or the way she thought she heard the nurse say, poison. She cared even less for the information the detective shared. Who was this Dirk Perryman, anyway? If he died in the house, that would make a little sense. Spooky sense. Halloween sense. This didn't. How had a living man sitting in a correctional facility managed to apply his fingerprints to Haskins' family moving box? How had Sabrina seen him? Her phone rumbled on the seat next to her. Michaela. Sabrina realized she had not told either of her children what had happened to their father or where she was, and wondered if she was the worst wife and mother on the planet. She didn't have her AirPods, so she tucked the phone between her chin and shoulder. "Hello? Mom, where are you?" "On the way home." Should she say something now, or what? Sit Michaela down? God knew Damien wouldn't so much as blink at the news his father had been hospitalized. "Okay, what are we doing for dinner?" Sabrina hadn't even thought of that. "Order pizza," she said. "Put it on the card in the drawer. The one you've been using to buy movies on iTunes," Sabrina almost added. "Pizza again?" Michaela said. The phone slipped. Sabrina pushed her jaw into her shoulder to keep it in place. "I'm almost home, just..." "Oh, I guess Damien ordered pizza," Michaela said. "What?" Sabrina could hear her daughter's footsteps over the phone, clamping through the house like a wildebeest. "There's a pizza on the counter from..." Sabrina could almost picture her bent over the pizza box, squinting. Michaela hated her glasses, and her old optometrist said she wasn't ready for contacts yet. "Some place called Mario's? Mario's? No, Mario's with an O. Throw it away." "What?" A cop pulled out from a side street up ahead. Sabrina flipped on the speakerphone, keeping it level with the dash so it wouldn't look like she was merely flaunting her state's hands-free law. "I said throw it away." "But Damien..." "Your brother didn't order it." "Not that Damien would order pizza anyway. Too helpful. I'll explain when I get home. Just don't eat anything. In fact, take your brother and..." The cop suddenly pulled over to the side of the road. No lights. And Sabrina dropped her phone in her lap so he wouldn't see. "Mom?" Michaela called, voice muffled by Sabrina's lap. "Mom?" "Hold on!" Sabrina shouted. She passed the cop, kept her eyes locked on the rear view, petrified he'd flip his flashers on. The cop stayed put. Sabrina fished the phone out of her lap. "I'll be home in 5 minutes." She had no idea how far away she was. "Don't do anything until then, okay?" Fine. This is so dumb," Michaela said. "See you soon," Sabrina said, thumb moving to end the call. "Mom?" "What?" Sabrina drove past the street she was 90% sure was the one she wanted. She needed to get off the phone, give up on understanding the Byzantine layout of her new town, and Google their darn address. I don't wanna, Michaela said, voice hazy and unsubstantial. Mom, stronger now, firmer. Damien's planning something. This was the last thing she needed right now. What do you mean? He's obsessed with messing with you, okay? Messing with me? That's what he's all about, making you crazy. He's got this new idea. I don't know all the details, but I want you to know so you're not scared because it's scaring me and... Sabrina understood precisely nothing what her daughter was saying. Damien? Planning something? He was malicious, certainly, but developmentally stunted. It sounded ridiculous. I'll be home soon, Sabrina said, ending the call. She thumbed over to the Maps app and tried to type in their address while keeping her eyes on the road. Sabrina pulled into the driveway a little after 6. A pang struck her. That same worry about Hal's car. What'd they do with it? She got out and paused. A strange whirring sound drawing her attention. Plus the scent in the air. Freshly cut grass. The sound grew louder, coming from the backyard. And then he came around the side of the house. Dirk Perryman. The man who was supposedly in prison, and not a very nice person at all, to hear Detective Sherman tell it. He pushed a rusty red and white mower, the canvas bag fat with grass clippings. Sweat drenched his brow, stained his t-shirt. He stopped next to the downspout, stepped away from the mower, and wiped his forehead with an old bandana. Hey, Sabrina yelled, then reflexively clamped a hand over her mouth. Perryman, startled, dropped the sweaty bandana on the ground, then saw her, and smiled. Oh, you scared me, he said, voice so deep, scared more sounded like scared. Sabrina gaped. I scared you? Gotta go, Perryman shouted. He dropped to his hands and knees, baby crawled through the downspout, a hysterically tiny aperture, and pushed his head inside, skull squishing. God help her, squishing like Play-Doh to fit, his massive paws scrabbling at the dirt for leverage, pushing his bulk further into the piping inch by inch, skin stretching like taffy. The downspout bulged and shook, all the way to the gutters, like a boa swallowing a particularly tenacious mouse. What the what? She mumbled. Mom, Michaela called. Sabrina glanced over at the front porch. Her daughter stood there, hands on hips, an odd look on her face. Who are you talking to? Michaela asked. Sabrina waved her away, stumbled towards the door. She couldn't begin to process what she'd seen, to slot it into her mental Rolodex of incredibly messed up phenomena witnessed over the last 6 days. She needed to get inside, dispose of the mystery pizza, and then... what? Leave? Stay? Burn 4596 James Circle to the ground and salt the earth? She couldn't even make up her mind about the house. One second it was terrifying, the next helpful. She'd been sleeping like crap, nothing seemed to make sense. Had the house actually done something to Hal? Was it trying to do something similar to the rest of her family? How could she know? And what should she do about it? If anything. Sabrina stopped just before the door. Michaela looked at her strangely. Mom? Come look at this, Sabrina said, grabbing her daughter's wrist. Michaela tried to shy away, but Sabrina held tight, pulled her down the front steps. Ow, Michaela said. I can walk. Sorry. Sabrina released her grip. Red marks remained, fingerprints standing in stark relief against her daughter's skin. Evidence. But then they faded. Michaela rubbed her wrist, glaring at Sabrina. What are you showing me? Over here, Sabrina said, rounding the house. The downspout looked utterly normal and obviously incapable of swallowing a man whole, and pointed to the abandoned lawnmower sitting in an unfinished strip of grass. So? Michaela crossed her arms. That's Damien's job. Cutting the lawn was one of the few tasks allotted to the youngest Haskins sibling. They didn't trust him with it. That would be ridiculous. Giving a kid like that unfettered access to a pair of whirling blades and a whole gallon of gas? So he did his duty under heavy supervision from Hal, who for his part mostly sipped beers and listened to sports talk radio on his phone. But thus far, no one had lost a finger. Damien wasn't doing as Sabrina said. When I came home, this man used to live here. The police told me he's in prison, so he shouldn't be here, but he is. I saw him cutting the grass, and then... Sabrina kicked the spout gently. I don't understand. What? Sabrina threw her head back and screamed. Actually screamed at the sky. A burst of anger and frustration that sent the crows perched on the neighbor's tree running for cover. The cry echoed in the late afternoon air. Her head sank into her chest. Tears filled her eyes. She leaned against the house, forehead pressed against the cool aluminum siding. Her chest hitched. She thought she might fall to pieces. She stood there for a very long time, worried she was losing her mind. Terrified she already had, and would never ever know. Michaela called Mom's name, tugged her sleeve, poked her. Nothing. Mom, increasingly unhinged these last few days, even into a 12-year-old's eye, had gone catatonic, apparently driven mad by... the lawn? Almost funny. Damien had been plotting and scheming for so long, coming up with ever more elaborate ways to manipulate their mother, when all he needed to do was neglect his chores? Figured Michaela took real pride in hers, but her parents rarely noticed. Just because Damien acted so weird, he got all the attention. Damien wasn't cutting the grass. After catching him carving his pentagram, Michaela dragged him upstairs by his ear. He'd pleaded with and threatened her, but she wouldn't budge, and she was still a few inches bigger than him. No matter what, she resolved to tell their parents his secret and put an end to this nonsense once and for all. Then Mom called. Michaela tried to tell her, dodging stink faces from Damien the whole time, but Mom wouldn't listen. Dad was nowhere to be found, and something was going on, but as per usual, nothing told Michaela anything. And then the little... She grit her teeth, trying to come up with the right word to describe her brother. The little so-and-so slipped away. To mow the yard? Maybe Damien started his chores before she'd gotten home, even though he wasn't supposed to use the mower without Dad, then taking his pentagram carving break. Whatever, she needed to figure out what to do about Mom. Michaela went inside, got her phone from the living room. She dialed Dad's cell. No answer. Should she call 911? That was only for emergencies, and Mom didn't seem hurt. She wasn't bleeding. Michaela didn't want to get in trouble. Damien, she finally called. Damien! No answer. Of course, he was no help. This was a sick little dream come to life. Back when it was all a game, and especially when Michaela was royally PO'd at her parents, such an outcome seemed funny because it was so clearly a fantasy. Michaela always thought Damien, for all his precocious genius, would only succeed in making Mom believe she shouldn't be allowed to use the adult scissors. But now? Mom flipping out over the grass, screaming nonsense at the sky, breaking down in tears. Crazy wasn't some far-off country, some esoteric destination to which they'd never arrive, paired with a journey steeped in delight, whimsy, and secretive sibling bonding as the Haskins kids lemony snickered their way out of childhood. Crazy was here, and it scared her. Damien? She tried one more time, louder. The house groaned in response. Michaela headed out the door. Her mother still leaned against the side of the house, face in hands, still as the aluminum siding, unresponsive. Mom. Michaela scrolled through her contacts, all hundreds of miles away. None of them could help her. Who? The neighbor. Her and Mom were friendly, right? Loath as she was to admit it, she very badly needed an adult. Damien crept around the side of the house, moving in a crouch like in Fortnite, completely silent. Except this time, he wasn't gripping a shotgun in an avatar's animated hands. This time he had something far better. As soon as Michaela got distracted by the phone call, he'd slipped past her. Hidden in the hall closet behind the laundry basket, pouting. He'd put so much effort into this, and now his stupid little sister was going to ruin everything. Until the screaming started. Damien knocked over the laundry basket, spilling soiled socks and underwear into the hallway. He peeked out his parents' window, down into the yard. Michaela fussed over a seemingly frozen Sabrina, who seemed to be having some kind of fit, then ran back in the house. She called his name, but he didn't answer. Then she left again. He moved to his own window, watched her hurry across the street. Very strange. Damien crept downstairs and out the back to see what the fuss was all about. Maybe they'd found a dead cat or something. Why that would send Michaela running for the neighbors, he couldn't fathom, but nothing about the odd tableau he'd witnessed made much sense. Rounding the side of the house, the first thing he noticed was the lawnmower, the partially cut strip of grass. Who'd been doing yard work? Michaela? He hated it, but it was his job to hate, not hers. Instinctively, he laid the back of his free hand against the motor. Still warm. Strange. But stranger still was the sight presented when he rounded the corner. Sabrina burrowing her face into the aluminium siding, tears streaming down makeup-smeared cheeks, shoulders hitching, lank hair plastered to her forehead, a ghoulish pallor in her skin. Damien froze, unsure what he'd walked in on, and some primal emotion cut through the years of bored disdain. Reflexively, without a care for the long chess game he'd played, a single word popped out of his lips. Mama? Sabrina gulped. Her head turned inexorably slowly in his direction. Her eyes met his. Took in her youngest child. Or the thing he'd made himself into for her detriment. Her eyes went wide, filled with fear and knowing. Again, once more, she screamed. Monster. She'd known all along, since Dr. Saperstein told her Damien consumed his womb mate, stolen any chance she'd ever have to know and love her third child. And now here it was, right in front of her, proof positive she'd been right. The Damien she'd known was gone, replaced by, there was no other word for it, a demon. His skin was blood red. Twisted horns grew from his forehead. Yellow cat's eyes blazed in the dark recesses of his skull. He cradled a bloody fetus under his arm like a normal boy might a football helmet. His dead sibling, perhaps. And worst of all, he called her Mama? His voice, a mocking parody of a child's love, like the gravely pit-birthed blasphemies of the demon inside Regan. The scorn-drenched timbre, a refutation of the word itself, and all the weight that came with it. Mama, mom, ma, mother, madre, mer, mutter, mor, matka. Any diminutive of mother, in any language, from that mouth? A lie. It's only meaning malice. She fled, wailing, the word mama flung at her back, and again. The demon thing's voice rattling between plaintive and hysterical, but every word adrip with profound mockery. Reaching the house, Sabrina fell up the front steps, banging her knees, biting her tongue. She flung herself at the door. It opened for her, and she fell into the house. The door slammed shut. Sabrina fumbled with the deadbolt until it slammed home, looked around, breathing heavily. Her gaze settled on the living room, disturbed and disturbing. A partially finished pentagram carved into the floor, black candles arranged around it. The air reeked of blood. She felt sick. That was what Michaela tried to tell her? Damien had what exactly? Summoned up his true self from hell, which apparently existed in an entirely literal sense? Never mind the pentagram lay unfinished, a rough scratching in their beautiful hardwood floors. She had no clue how those things worked. All she had was this. Hell was here, in her home. And since the moment a bad bolt of sperm poisoned the wicked egg, it always had been. Damien was knocking on the front door, pounding and yelling muffled things in his ancient deceiver's voice. Sabrina ran to the back door, locked that too. The locks couldn't hold him for long, could they? Panting, desperate, her eyes alight on the knife rack. But she quickly looked away, pressed her hands together in prayer, awkward, unfamiliar, and offered up half-remembered words of devotion to a God who logically should actually be listening, all things considered. In response, the TV in the living room turned on, playing a commercial for some new kind of laundry detergent. So loud she couldn't hear the bathtub upstairs starting to run. Damien ran after his mother, Mama, but her legs were far longer, propelled by terror. This was the result he expected, the result he desperately desired. Sabrina fleeing from him, stricken with fear, and yet he knew viscerally and intellectually that he hadn't caused any of this. Made it worse, maybe. She fell on the porch, threw herself through the doorway, slammed the door in his face. Damien stood on the front porch, panting, reached for the doorknob. Locked. He felt ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. Caked with dime store demon makeup, chasing a grown woman, and the mentally ill one at that. What had he become? Damien reached up, grabbed the horn, ripped it away, leaving a tacky residue of spirit gum on his brow. He tossed it in the bushes, reached for the other one, and froze when the porch groaned under a weight 3 times his own. Damien, half-horned, whirled around. A man stood on the steps. Large, dirty, wearing a once white t-shirt, belly straining the fabric. He had a very square head, short hair. A wide grin stained his face. You're Damien, right? Damien's head whipped from one neighboring house to the other, to the curb, trying to figure out if the man was simply a neighbor he'd not met, or a landscaper, or... How do you know my name? Damien asked. I've been helping out your mother, the man said, cocking his chin at the house. She needs a lot of help. Damien couldn't exactly disagree, but still. Who are you? The man chuckled, gazing down the porch steps. I'm me, and you're you. And Damien, I'm sorry to say this, but... He fixed Damien with a very serious stare, the kind of look parents and teachers gave him when he'd crossed a line. You've made things very difficult for your mother. And we simply can't have that. The man lunged. Damien jumped back. The doorknob slammed into his lower back, and then the man had him, wrapped up in a bear hug, pressing Damien's face into his chest. And he couldn't see anything, but he could smell. A thick, overwhelming, cloying, horribly familiar miasma of scents. Not male musk and grass clippings, as his appearance might suggest, but wood, mothballs, dust, bleach, baking cookies. Just like their house. Michaela raised a fist to pound on the door, then froze, mid-air. She didn't want to look crazy, and rang the doorbell instead. Shot a look over her shoulder. Her mother was fixated on something around the side of the house. Disturbing, but at least she hadn't gone anywhere. No one came to the door. Michaela rang the doorbell again, shuffling from one foot to the other like she had to pee. She tried the bell one last time, about to give up and call 911. They wouldn't lock up a 12-year-old if she really was worried, right? When muffled footsteps resounded from inside the house, Michaela exhaled a sigh of relief. The door opened. An aged woman stood there, older than Mom, wearing what looked like a carpet. She raised an eyebrow at the tween on her doorstep. Help you? I'm Michaela Haskins, from across the street. She turned to point at their new house. As if she'd been a hair faster, she might have seen the man with Dirk Perryman's fingertips disappearing into the side yard. Her little brother in a headlock. The woman, Zephyr, her name was, mock curtsied. I finally get to meet the other lady at the house. Salamat siang, young miss, as they say. Michaela didn't know anyone who said that. My mom, she's acting... funny? Peculiar? Passing strange? Can't say I'm surprised. That house... The woman trailed off, staring into the distance. I need your help, Michaela said. I don't know what to... Zephyr held up a hand. Say no more. Come in while I get a few things. I'm going to do what I should have done a long, long time ago. Michaela blinked. What's that? Zephyr clenched a fist. I'm going to exercise the pants off that horrible, horrible house. With prejudice. Sabrina was on 60 Minutes and Dateline, 2020, 60/40, Real Sports with Ryan Gumbel, Fake Sports with Byron Grimble, Clarissa Explains It All, and Hannity, which would have impressed her noddingly conservative husband. Were he not languishing in a hospital bed? Every time Sabrina flipped the channel, there she was, laughing with the anchors, chatting, perfectly coiffed and looking far more beautiful than all the Instamommies combined. She finally settled on a show called Everywhere Tonight. Tell me, Sabrina, an incredibly handsome chin-dimpled specimen asked, star in his eyes, agog at her glory. How do you do it? You've got your fitness empire, pillowcase and duvet line, the new Peanuts comic strip. Screen Sabrina laughed, an aggressive, mirthless lady boss laugh that would make her inevitably nerdy assistant pee her pants in terror, and waved dismissively. I can take all the credit, Dan Keith. I've got a little help. The camera panned over to the side of the stage where Dirk Perryman, or the thing passing as him, entered stage left, still wearing his filthy, stained t-shirt and ripped jeans. But the crowd went wild anyway. Screen Perryman clasped his hands high over his head and waggled them, mugging for the audience. So glad you could join us, Dan Keith said. When we come back, Bleep and I will talk about some major changes coming to the Haskins household. Screen Sabrina winked at the camera. About time we shook things up around here. Just like a baby, Screen Perryman added, pantomiming a shaken infant. He tossed the imaginary baby to Dan Keith, who planted it feet first in an equally invisible blender, and made pitch perfect whirring sounds. The anchor wiped imaginary baby guts off his forehead with the sleeve of his suit jacket, then smiled into the camera. Be right back. Damien kicked, scratched, clawed, but the big man who smelled like their house wouldn't let him go. Get off me, he yowled. The man clamped a meaty paw over his mouth. Not that there was anyone to care. His mother would have welcomed his abduction at any point during the last decade, but especially now. Michaela had gone from co-conspirator and confidant to arch-enemy in the space of a day. Maybe this was her play, hiring some sicko off the dark web to do away with him, so he wouldn't torment her precious mother. What had Sabrina ever done for Michaela anyway? Nothing. Served him right for ever letting a lesser light in on her plans in the first place. The man dragged him around the side of the house, past the mower. Damien had visions of his captor yanking the ripcord, shoving his face into the whirling, muck-encrusted blades, and up the back steps. Your mom's busy in the living room, the man said in his ear, tone friendlier than the circumstances warranted. Don't want to bug her, he lowered his voice. You like bugging her, don't you? No. The man shook him. Don't lie to me. I see everything. I know everything. Leave me alone! The man tucked Damien under his arm, easy as the morning paper, and opened the back door. I'm going to make sure you never bother her again. Damien tried to cry out, but the man squeezed him so tightly his yawp was born a wheeze, and died on his lips. This way, Michaela said, then felt kinda dumb because of course their neighbors knew the way. The older woman didn't seem to notice, striding across the pavement with a macrame bag swinging from her shoulder, stuffed with all sorts of potions and powders and assorted gris-gris, and the totems of a half-dozen religions the hippie had sampled like a tapas menu for most of her 60-ish years. Don't you worry, we'll get to the bottom of this, Zephyr said. I'm very sensitive. Ever since I was a little girl, I saw things that other people couldn't. The world isn't what they say it is. Okay. You're lucky to have a neighbor like me. Round here, all the Christians, they sprinkle your mother with holy water. She gagged on her words. Read some nonsense from that book of theirs, and nothing would get done. Michaela furrowed her brow. The Haskins family thought of themselves as Christian, but their particular breed of Christianity was vague, limp, a wet rag. Still, she felt a little insulted. I, on the other hand, have traveled the world. New Orleans, Jamaica, learning from the masters, those with intimate knowledge of what lies beyond the veil, and... Just help my mom, okay? Michaela said, mounting the curb. Sabrina was gone. The front door closed. The mower that had kicked off this latest meltdown still sat beside the house. Zephyr nodded curtly. I'll do my best. Damien squirmed in his captor's embrace. Many a time he'd pithily recited that old saw about the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. But his vaunted mind was no help. Couldn't conjure up any novel solution to his predicament. Bite, scratch, claw, scream. The man dragged him down the hall. He caught a quick glimpse of Mom, squatting in front of the TV, caressing the static with her fingertips, then up the stairs, towards his parents' room. Damien smiled, the last part of his planned surprise. He sucked a breath in through his nostrils, tensed his muscles. The man hit the tripwire. Immediately, 2 massive buckets of pig's blood doused him. Damien squeezed his eyes shut, tried not to gag on the rancid iron tang in the air. All smells are particulate, and wriggled against his captor's grip. No use. Bleh, the man said. That's nasty. Then he carried the blood-soaked boy into the master bathroom like nothing had happened. Nothing at all. Hot water rushed from the spigots, filling the tub. Steam curled from the surface. The man plopped down on the edge, dipping his free hand in the water. He only needed one hammock to hold the boy. He whirled it around, nodding to himself. Be full soon. Damien peed. A little. No, a lot. Then did a thing that the average 10-year-old did fairly frequently, though a few would ever admit it. He called out for his mother. On TV, Dan Keith Olberhort grinned and said, So I understand you've got some major news regarding your #1 hit show, Paying Heed to the Haskinses. That's right, Dan Keith, Screen Sabrina nodded at Screen Perryman. Bleep and I have been talking. Dan Keith held up a finger. Sorry to interrupt, but who exactly is Bleep? Oh, Bleep is, I guess you could say he's our producer. In the living room, Sabrina leaned forward on the couch, barely blinking, eyes bone dry. Unaware she was chewing her nails to the quick. Should we tell them, Screen Sabrina said, about the casting change? Screen Sabrina nodded vigorously, jowls bouncing up and down. Go right ahead, Sabrina, after all. Dan Keefe, Screen Sabrina, and Screen Perryman all leapt into the air simultaneously and froze, suspended above the stage, while the legend, It's Your Family, smeared itself across the screen in a drippy crimson font. The studio lights darkened. The camera zoomed in on Screen Sabrina. Solemn music played in the background. As you know, Screen Sabrina said, a study in gravitas, Damien hasn't been pulling his weight lately. He doesn't really add anything to storyline, so we're writing him off. Writing him off? Dan Keefe replied, mock-shocked. That's right, Screen Perryman... Oh, that's right, Screen Perryman said, nodding stoically. If anything, he's a liability. Blood from her chewed fingers dribbled down the corner of Sabrina's mouth, her words echoing in her head. Liability, liability, liability. She saw the horned, capering, demonic creature that had chased her into the house, frothing at the mouth, ready to devour her very soul. But she also saw the little boy underneath all that makeup. Obvious makeup. She'd really thought him a demon? She saw the baby he'd been, the loquacious toddler, the curious and withdrawn boy he'd become. Sure, she didn't understand him, and yes, he certainly unsettled her. Maybe he wasn't the child she dreamed of, and maybe the good Lord owed her another one. But at the end of the day, despite the half-finished pentagram scratched beneath her feet, the cheap Halloween getup, all of it, he wasn't a liability. He's my son, Sabrina whispered. And then she heard it. Her finally acknowledged son, that bright, clever, diabolical little boy, screaming his bloody lungs out. Let's take that break now, because our ads are coming up, and it's desynced between the pre-rolls and the actual ads now, so yeah, we gotta take that break right now. We'll finish reading this chapter, and that will be enough for today, I think, of reading. Yeah, be right back. Sha. Ka-chow. I'm back. I come back. I return to you. Wow. Why does my phone have an audio source on? What the hell? Weird. Anyway. Hi, I'm back. I've come back. Ready to finish reading today's reading segment. We're about 2/3 of the way through the book, so next time we read this, we're definitely gonna finish it, but not today, because my throat is about ready to give up. At least loud reading speak. Okay. Let us continue. Michaela yanked on the front door. It's stuck. Let me, Zephyr said, elbowing her aside. The older woman twisted the doorknob. Nothing. Then fiddled with Michaela's key. Still, the door wouldn't open. Zephyr huffed, backed away, looking the door up and down. It shut us out. What's shut us out? The house. Zephyr opened her bag, rummaged through the assorted vials. When I came to visit your mother the other day, I felt it, but I had no idea the power. She trailed off, clinking her glass, speaking for her instead. What are we gonna do? Michaela asked, hugging herself. Something was very, very wrong. The hairs on the back of her neck stood tall, like an anticipation of a storm, but she couldn't fathom the precise nature of the disturbance. Still, she couldn't help but wonder. Mom had claimed the house was haunted, and now their neighbor was speaking of the structure as if it had purpose, intention? How did that make sense? Zephyr produced a jar of white powder from her bag. Aha! And twisted the cap free. She dumped the powder on the porch, chanting a hymn of some sort, unknown tongue. Unneeded, Michaela drifted over to the window, looked inside. Sabrina sat on the couch, enraptured by a static spewing television, evidently chewing her fingers off. Mom! She cried, banging on the window. Mom, let us in! The old woman tapped on the window. Sabrina? Hey, Sabrina! Sabrina sat bolt upright, but not in response to their crisis, but a scream coming from upstairs. Damien! Sabrina ran for the stairs. Michaela smacked the window again, but couldn't get her attention. What was going on in there? Nothing good. We have to get inside, Michaela said, tugging on Zephyr's arm. There's one last spell we can try. Find a rock, a big one. Michaela ran down the steps, jumping over the last, and landed in the grass. The flagstone walkway seemed to fit the bill. She leaned down, prying a rock loose with her fingers. The squirming horrors underneath went unnoticed, as did the fresh mud staining her hands, and she carried it back up the steps, swaying under its weight. Zephyr took the rock from her. I hope you're not partial to that window. She squared up with the window, rock raised overhead, chest heaving. Michaela watched, pulse pounding. 1, Zephyr said. 2. The front door swung open, and Hal stuck his head out. What in the world are you doing? Zephyr paused, rock held high. Michaela, overcome with relief, rushed into the arms of her father. Dad, when did you... There, Hal said, patting her back while she hugged him tight. Everything's going to be okay. Daddy's home. Half full. The water ran. Damien struggled, but he was tired. So tired. Banging ineffectual fists against his mountainous abductor proved an ever more taxing chore, and the steam rising off the water almost looked inviting now, didn't it? Intellectually, he understood what was happening. Whoever this man was, he seemed bent on drowning Damien in the bath. And the more he sat there, tight in the man's grasp, the wet humidity of the room beating on his cheeks, the more he figured it didn't much matter at all. He'd fought with everything he had, and his effort had been for naught. Why keep trying then? Why waste the little energy he had left on a futile endeavor? Damien had been a committed atheist for most of his life, except for a short Santa Claus-related dalliance. But even he couldn't acknowledge his belief system was built on rationality, not direct knowledge. No one had direct knowledge of death except those who'd experienced it, and they remained famously tight-lipped about the whole thing. No one's better at seeking out silver linings than the profoundly doomed. "I tried to warn you," the man said. "Tried to make friends, even. First day you moved in, when you were out in the yard." The texts. Damien felt like a buffoon, assuming them some complicated sister play, when in fact... "Good enough," the man said. The spigots turned themselves off. Damien didn't know whether the apparently supernatural feat made him more or less scared. His pulse said one thing. Logic brain said something else entirely. Any hint of the supernatural was very good news for someone in his inescapable predicament. "You're not human?" Damien said, less a question than a statement. The man winked at him. "Human is as human does," and thrust him beneath the surface. Hot water scoured Damien's skin. He tried to hold his breath, pushed on the side of the tub, but an inexorable weight kept pressing him down, down, and down. He tried. He really, really tried. But in the end, he inhaled. Back at the hospital, Detective Sherman was trying to rustle a bag of Doritos out of the vending machine when the nurse found her. "Got those lab results on Haskins," the nurse said, handing her a printout. Sherman scanned it quickly. "PT, INR, warfarin? Haskins wasn't supposed to be on blood thinners. And, hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to poison their spouse, like nervous, aloof woman, she just intervened." In addition to being a clinically prescribed anticoagulant, warfarin was also widely used as a rat poison. Sherman knew from experience that dosing was crucial. Haskins imbibed enough to kill a child, but not a slightly overweight, almost middle-aged man. Common mistake. She reached for her radio. "What's going on here, kiddo?" Hal asked, ruffling Michaela's hair. The question was spoken to her, but he kept looking at Zephyr, still poised at the living room window with a heavy flagstone brace in her hands. "Mom's acting weird, so I went to get Miss Zephyr." Zephyr said, still not letting go of the rock. "And now the door won't open and Mom wouldn't let us in?" The rush of words ended. Michaela burrowed into her father's chest. Glad he was here. He could deal with it. Not her. This wasn't her job at all. Michaela's nose twitched. Her father usually smelled like some combination of Barbasol, Old Spice, and sweat. He smelled like some of those things now, but mostly, he smelled like their house. "Drop the rock," Hal said. "Look, Mr. Haskins," Zephyr interjected. "I said," Hal thundered, flinging Michaela aside, "drop the goddamn rock!" He tromped up the steps. Zephyr, still holding the rock, backed away, butting up against the porch swing, sending it backwards in a lazy arc. "Mr. Haskins, I know we haven't officially met, but..." Hal unleashed a vicious backhand, knocking the flagstone out of Zephyr's hand. It sailed over the porch railing, end over end, embedding in a patch of grass. "Dad!" Michaela shouted, stunned by the sudden outburst. Zephyr tried to back away, fell down on the porch. Hal loomed over her, fists bunching. Zephyr grabbed something from her pocket and threw it in his face. Powder, like flour in an old Three Stooges. Covered his cheeks, his chin. Hal blinked, wiped a stripe across his eyes with a forearm, and grabbed Zephyr by the hair. Spitting white powder, Hal yanked, audibly tearing her brown-gray hair out at the roots. Zephyr wailed, grabbing his hand. "Dad, stop!" Michaela shouted, but her feet were rooted in place. Zephyr screeched, clawed, but Hal didn't seem to notice. He dragged her across the porch, by the hair, and threw her down the steps. The old woman tumbled ass over elbows, landing in a spindly, mewling pile. "You don't even live in a real house," Hal said. He spat in the dirt next to Zephyr. Zephyr pushed herself up to her hands and knees. Blood trickled from her scalp, and pointed a gnarled, accusatory finger at Hal. "I know what you are." Her finger dipped down, scratching a quick pentagram in the dirt. She thrust her hand back, arms outstretched, howling at the sky. "Before me, Raphael. Behind me, Gabriel. At my right hand, Michael. At my left hand—" Hal jumped off the porch, landing in the pentagram, a cloud of dust poofing in his wake. He grabbed Zephyr again, by the throat rather than hair, cutting off her spell, her prayer, her lament. He cocked his head at Michaela. "Not much of a team player, is she?" Crack. Hal lifted the woman easily, shook her limp body in the direction of her house. "Ha! How you like that?" Then dropped her in the dirt. Michaela felt sick. She couldn't wrap her head around the fact that her dad had attacked a woman for no reason and She couldn't finish. "How about some ice cream?" Hal said, wiping his hands on his jeans. Michaela gaped at him, backed away, palms up. He looked exactly like her father, but something wasn't right. Not only his murderous behavior either. This wasn't her father. Just a perfect copy. Ignoring the dead woman on the ground, a moment she'd been rehashing with her therapist for the next 30 years, Michaela ran across the lawn towards the side of the house. The thing, wearing her father's image like a perfectly cut suit, thundered after. She pumped her arms, legs churning against the turf, but he was faster, slamming into her. She cried out, flying across the lawn, lateraling into the mower. The handle slammed into her side, painfully, and she fell over. Michaela landed on the grass, seeing stars blinking at the late afternoon sky. Hal's grinning face filled her field of vision. Sabrina mounted the stairs, one by one, moving in the fog. At the landing, she paused, momentarily forgetting herself. Admired the fine finish on the banister, so smooth she could slide right down it without ever worrying about an errant splinter getting stuck in her caster. It really was a nice house, wasn't it? Her bedroom door was open, the sound of the filling bathtub echoing. She walked slowly down the hall, a nagging feeling driving her, although she couldn't quite remember what it was. Something she'd seen on TV, but even though she just watched the program, the details had already faded from her mind. The sound of running water abruptly cut off. She heard voices talking to each other, one calm, collected, the other high-pitched, panicked, afraid, very, very afraid. She burst through her bedroom door, nearly tripping on a pair of Hal's shoes he'd left next to the bed. A light was on in the master bedroom. Steam wafting out the door. Hello? Sabrina called, and instantly felt very, very stupid. "In here," a voice said, amiable and familiar, like when she prowled her old house trying to find Hal, catching him at his workbench, tinkering with some fixing appliance. She entered, frozen the doorway, the odd tableau stopping her in her tracks like a taser. The man from the experience, the man who was currently in prison and in her house, the simultaneous man, one who could call him, sat on the edge of the tub, casual, placidly grinning. One arm splayed across his knee, the other sunk in the bathwater up to the elbow, holding someone under, who for their part thrashed and kicked and splashed water all over the floor. The tiny basketball sneakers, size 5, small for his age, told her precisely who was being drowned in her tub. "Hey," Perryman said, "casual as you please. We're almost done here." "What are you doing?" Sabrina managed. "I told you, it'll be better without him around. I've seen the way he torments you." But you can't." "I only want to make your life easier, Sabrina. I can take care of everything. I have to, because no one else will." The thrashing slowed. Sabrina felt sick to her stomach, No! She screamed, charging. She rammed into Pettyman, bouncing off, slamming painfully into the towel rack. He wagged a finger at her. Let me take care of this. He's been mean to you, and he did an awful, awful thing to me. You saw the living room. My beautiful floors. Stop it! Sabrina looked around for a weapon. Anything. The welt on her back throbbed. She turned, grabbed the towel rack with both hands, and yacked it out of the wall. Ow! Quit it! Pettyman cried, cringing. The distraction was enough. Damien broke the surface, sucked in a desperate breath, before being pushed down again. Sabrina summed up every last bit of maternal strength she had and swung the towel rack at Perryman. The metal bar clunked off his forehead. Perryman blinked. That's not necessary. Sabrina hit him again and again, flailing away. The blows landed on his head, his broad brow across his mouth. Nothing. Sabrina whirled and hit the wall, taking a chunk out of the drywall. Ouch! Again Perryman's grip faltered. Damien snuck a breath. Sabrina clutched the towel rod in both hands, reared back, plunged it into wall. Gritting her teeth, she bore it down, scoring a jagged lightning strike slice into the drywall. Plaster dust erupted, a bitter, gritty cloud that scoured her throat and her nostrils. Stop, Perryman whined. Sabrina dropped the towel rod, gripped the hole in the wall with both hands, tore a large chunk free. No! Perryman hopped to his feet, grabbing her arms. He spun Sabrina around to face him, a pained expression on his face. Please don't do that. I'm trying to help. A form erupted from the tub, splashing reddish water everywhere. Damien, soaking wet, makeup running down his face, a single askew horn clinging stubbornly to his forehead, vaulted out of the tub, slipped on the wet floor, careened into the sink. Pettyman shoved Sabrina against the wall, moving faster than a man his size had any right, and lunged for Damien. He tackled him, football style, wrapping the boy up in his arms. They both slammed into the cabinet, ripping it off the wall. Perfume bottles fell, shattered, effervescent clouds of fruity florality filling the steamy air. Damien squirmed free, rolling in the broken glass. Rivulets of blood ran down his face, his arms. Pettyman tried to grab his ankle, but the boy juked too fast, slipping out of his grip and running out the door. His hands were on her. Rough. These were not her father's hands at all. Soft from years of office work. He grabbed her throat, squeezed the breath from her lungs. Michaela panicked, raking his hands with her nails. Small, partly, cut to the quick because her parents wouldn't let her grow them out. Not yet, but he didn't budge. He just kept grinning. Come on, you're the good one, Hal said, hot breath choking her as much as his hands. Redolent of sawdust and mothballs and bleach. Not like Damien. You're Mommy's little angel, aren't you? But she wasn't. She'd never been. A daughter? Yes. An angel? Never. Maybe soon, unless she did something. Later, she'd wonder why he didn't snap her neck like Zephyr's, and eventually find an answer she could live with, if not understand, in those words. You're Mommy's little angel. In the moment, she had no time to ponder. Only act. She got one hand under his fingers, vices, for sure, giving her room to breathe, while the other scrabbled above her head for a weapon. A rock, something she could bash into his dafty, grinning face, and buy herself the time and space needed to escape. Her fingers found the mower's pull cord. Instinctively she yanked. The careened mower roared to life. The blades whirled, a great deathly gust ruffling her hair, whipping it across her face. The Hal thing cocked its head to the side, loosened its grip. You want to help your dad with the grass? That's nice of you. See, I knew you weren't like the other one. You're a good little girl who does what she's told. Michaela sucked in a breath, her throat scratchy. She could barely hear him over the whopping mower, but nodded quickly. I'm a good girl, yes sirree. Hal backed off, sat on his haunches. I'm so relieved. I really didn't want you. I don't like doing this. He gestured around the front of the house, where Zephyr's body lay, unseen. But when someone gets in the way, makes it hard for me. I have to. He trailed off, shrugging. What are you gonna do? Michaela squirmed out from under her father. She tried to look apologetic, wagged a fistful of loose hair at him. I need a hair tie. Then I'll help you with the grass. Hal grinned. Clap his hands. That would be so great. Team Haskins, woo! Michaela stood, circled around him, unwilling to turn her back. Don't be too long, Hal said. It's going to be dark soon. Be right back. Part of her wanted to run for the street, but she knew that would be useless. He'd catch her in a second. And though he seemed to possess a childlike simplistic understanding of his world, she couldn't count on outwitting him again. Then she saw it. The flagstone, half buried in the yard, one jagged end jutting up. Michaela moved casually, like she was actually going to grab a hair tie, watching the Hal thing from her peripherals. Her hands shook. Could she really do this? The spasm eased. She could do this. She had to. In one quick motion, Michaela snatched up the flagstone, heavy, but like a feather in the hands of a desperate young girl, and turned, charging the Hal thing, the stone clutched tightly to her chest. Hal cocked his head to the side, rising. Michaela hefted the rock like a chest-passed basketball. The stone caught the Hal thing in the face, snapping his head around. He fell, face first, into the mower's rapidly spinning blades. Crunch! The Hal thing's body jumped and spasmed as the blades tore through his face. He flailed, pushing at the mower. One hand got caught in the blades. Then, clunk, clunk, clunk. The mower stopped. The air smelled like burning metal. If the Hal thing were human, the lawn should by all rights be covered in a spray of blood and gore, lacerated flesh, splintery bone chips. But no, the detritus spewed across the lawn looked more like wood shavings and powdered drywall than anything that might have come from a human body. Michaela gave the corpse a wide berth, inching over to the flagstone, picked it up again, pressed the weight against her, confirming like a heavy blanket. She watched for any sign of movement, any hint the nightmare might not be over. The Hal thing stirred. Michaela jumped back, unable to believe it. The body, that's what it was now, a body, twitched. Its undamaged hand pushed first at the mower's casing, then at the ground. Its head, what was left of it, wobbled from left to right, like a drunk trying to shake the cobwebs out. Oh no, Michaela muttered. A noise, a wailing cry of, not exactly pain, but a close cousin, emerged from the creature's ruined mouth. It worked its way up to its knees. Michaela, gripping the rock, moved behind it, trying to stay out of view? Had it ever really seen? Could it still? A question for philosophers, should any take up the case of the bizarre happenings at 4596 James Circle. Not little girls trying their best to survive. The wailing stopped. The Hal thing pushed back up to its knees. One-handed, the other dangled at its side. Shirt sleeve shredded at the wrist. Lacerated wood and dangling wires poking out. Michaela raised the stone above her head. She let out an animalistic squall and charged, ready to finish the job the mower started. Then the Hal thing turned, and the sight froze her in her tracks. God, I need to take a little break here. This is a long-ass chapter. I feel like this chapter has been like almost like a quarter of the book or something. I hope I don't have to push towards the end, because I'm gonna have to stop soon. 2 hours is about as long as I can keep reading this before my throat just like completely starts saying, yo, you gotta stop. Let me just let's see, let's flip through this and check if there's much left. Oh my god. Oh yeah, this just keeps going until the end. Okay. Almost. And it just keeps going. Alright then. I think I should probably stop soon then instead, huh? Hmm. Let's just scroll back, cause... Oh. And did my Kindle freeze? Oh, almost. Where is the actual... There you go. It's just that this bit is like all action packed and stuff, and things are going down now, you know, so it's kind of hard to find a place to stop. I suppose we should probably stop now, cause yeah, this is like a cliffhanger, you know. It's, oh my god, what did she see on the Halfling's face? What could it possibly be? Oh my god, see ya next week and we'll find out, huh? That's, yeah, this is a decent bit to leave off of. We're 78% of the way through the book, so next time when we read it, we will be, we'll get done with it pretty quick. And then we'll do something else, I guess. I don't suppose I want to read 2 books in a single day, so I'll just... Next week we'll maybe find another book afterwards. But for now, that's it for the reading. I got nothing else to say. Yeah. I like the weird... It's interesting how the house is like... thinks it's helping, huh? It's not your usual malicious house. It is, it's like a... maliciously benevolent kind of... oblivious kind of house, huh? Get I was always still hoping that the mom would go crazy and just kind of live with the house at the end, but doesn't seem like that's gonna be the case. They should just burn that thing down at this point. But also, what the hell is... I'm not sure the author of this book knows how lawnmowers work. I'm not entirely sure what the hell kind of lawnmower that's supposed to be. Because you can't just pull a cord on a lawnmower and it'll turn on. Hey, Minnie, how you doing? You're an elite marble today. Hell yeah, because it's your birthday. Everybody say happy birthday to Minnie, who's a birthday girl today. Yeehaw. How does it feel being old? Never been more sure that you're one of mine. But as I was saying, you can't just pull a cord on a lawnmower and turn it on. That's just not how it works. You gotta hold down a lever, a safety lever and stuff. Otherwise it doesn't turn on. Secondly, a lawnmower just like stalls if you stick anything into it, really. Long grass will stall it. And also, there's no bit on a lawnmower on the front or anything that you can actually like fall into, because it's all covered up. It's only the bottom that has the blade spinning. My belief is unsuspended. I cannot believe this is happening. Oh my god. It's all ruined. God dang it. It's all ruined. Also, for a book called Man Fuck This House, there's like 0 profanity in it. Maybe this is like the censored version I found or something. Because at one point a guy even said G.D instead of God damn it. But I had to like make it worse by saying God dang it. But yeah, it's an interesting book. It's fun. I feel like my dramatic reading started wearing out towards the end just because I got tired. But there you have it. That's That just does book today. I'll stop the recording now and I'll figure out what I want to do for next week. I suppose I could just make that schedule, which won't actually have much to do, but we'll still do it anyway.